So here we are. I'm here with Natalie and I'm here with Lauren. I'm really excited to connect again. Really fantastic to have a book to connect around. So I'm very happy. We're going to share a little bit around one of the chapters, but if we start by, if you can introduce yourselves and where you are, and it happens to be that you know each other. Not everyone have, yeah. But so you introduce, and also about your first peek into the book, possibly. What your reflection is would be fun. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Matilda. So, yeah, it's really exciting to be here. I'm Natalie, and I met Matilda in Iceland about 2 years ago now on a very amazing and deep spiritual sexual shamanic training. And I actually also met Lauren, who is in the bottom of my screen, on that training as well. And Lauren and I have been in a relationship together since then, so for the last 18 months. So who am I? So yeah, I'm Natalie. I am an intimacy coach, and I'm also working at the moment with leaders and businesses looking at how we can create more truth, more intimacy, more aliveness within business and organization, as well as then working with people in their personal lives as well.
And you have looked just a little bit into the book now.
Yeah.
What is your kind of first reflections on that?
So I love the title, Makeup and Masks. It definitely has so many connotations for me, for us in our relationship as well. I definitely have been on a journey of what it means to not have makeup, what it means to be raw and vulnerable, coming from a place where I was told so much that I had to be perfect and beautiful, and that's what women did. And it's been really interesting for me coming full circle actually with Lauren, of then looking at how we can use makeup and masks consciously as well, and how that can also create more expression and more aliveness and different dimensions too. So I'm excited to explore that and the inverse as well.
That's fantastic. Great. So we will talk more about like the chapter and everything in a little bit. Perfect. Thank you very much. Lauren.
Yeah. Hiya. So yeah, of course. So I met Nat and Matilda at the same place. And as Matilda said, it's such an amazing opportunity to be able to catch up now. So thank you so much for having us both here. So I'm based in London. Natalie and myself both in England. I'm in London at the moment. And my work is partly in sexuality and power, leadership, coaching, relationships, facilitation work. And partly I work in film and TV as a screenwriter, director, long-suffering actor, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's what I do.
Great. And for you to hear about, you probably heard about how I live and we live, 2 years ago, and what your reflection on that. There's a book now with that.
Yeah, I mean, I remember very clearly you talking about it, and you'd imagine on a spiritual sexual shamanic workshop you hear all sorts, right? But actually this really stood out. I think it feels still incredibly impressive, radical, like hard work. Is it possible? Like, what does that mean? What does it bring up? Like, what does that do to a relationship? Like, so many questions, so much. I remember talking to you about it in different ways on the actual trainings, and yeah, feeling that it's such a treasure trove for expansion and exploration of both like yourself and of relationship, and then knowing that you found a vehicle through which to for which to share this with people. Obviously we've read the big, like the foreword, the introduction, and then we get this chapter, right? So it's like I'm intrigued to read the rest and to talk more about our chapter, and I think it's wonderful that you're sharing what is probably still an incredibly unique path with the world. And I love how you begin it as well, talking about that you're a mother of 4, and that you're in your 50s, and that you're approaching it from so many angles where people would normally have a lot of resistance or confusion as to know how it's possible to have had such a fulfilling sexual life. So great, thank you for bringing this treasure trove to the world.
No, thank you so much for all those beautiful words and so many great questions also that we will elaborate in our sharings a little bit later now. So thank you both for this part. This was our introduction. So thank you for now. So we're going to continue sharing, and you both, dears, have gotten to read the chapter number 30, Masks and Makeup.
Ooh.
And yeah, woo. That was one kind of profound thing that happened. My aim is to kind of clear myself to be able to have these beautiful meetings with people, and it's so amazing. And just a few years ago, I had no idea that was kind of possible to feel that way and to allow that way. And yeah, so any angle you want to start share around that, or what is your take on what you've read a little bit?
I mean, I've got a question first up, like that you just like sprung for me, which was, so when we met a couple of years ago, obviously you were how many years into this journey of daily sex with your partner? Like 25, I don't know, 30?
Yeah, well, yeah, 2008, we start having the daily routine, kind of the commitment and the game.
So 12,
sexual,
10 years. And when we were met, obviously we were going on like a deeper training into what I would say it was almost like revealing your authentic self, like beyond the masks. Yes, sexually, but intimately, more general, emotionally, like with yourself, with what you care about, with the world. I'm curious, like what the process of being like your authentic self was in relationship and sexuality before these trainings, and like how it shifted in the last couple of years since you've gone deeper into these.
Yeah, huge shifts, because the whole kind of game of meeting, sexually every 24 hours, it kind of opened my body to all these new energies and orgasms and everything. So it actually, me finding this training that you aim at, is the training in the shamanic, sexual, spiritual way here. That was one of the pieces I was like looking for. Where can I train with people or people who speak the same language? And so I brought my partner to that training. That was one of the pieces that we did. And my journey, I was so scared. It was so much, programming, and you shouldn't do this, and you shouldn't do that, and this is scary. I need to, protect something, and all, it's like very, very scary journey, and also really, really revealing and opening, humongous space, which created that I have organized now in Iceland several years, because I want to see more of this kind of free, experiencing, areas where we can develop, because it's actually our development happening here.
Yeah, totally. I think it's really interesting, that dance between our fears and then the expansion that happens when you step into them. And I think for me that's like a huge part of whenever there's something revealing in relationship. Being like, I get very, very contracted and very fearful standing on the outside, whether that's going into a training or a certain kind of space with Natalie, or even just like when we're sitting down to connect like emotionally together, the resistance that's there around my projection around how awful it's going to be. And then the like surprises and the beauty and the depth of connection that arises when you step in. And it's interesting how that just keeps showing up, this dance between the kind of old programming and then the relief and the joy that comes from it.
I have a reflection on that, because it's like several experiences going on when you go to a training as a couple also, because you're there as one individual, the other person is there as one individual, and then you're there as a couple. Yeah, so the couple is kind of one unit that you want to protect. You want to kind of, there's like all kind of things that's going on there. Yeah, and then you're trying to experience yourself, so it becomes a lot of stuff. So in one way, it's kind of easier to experience on your own, freely everything, and then go home and enjoy, or experience together, like bring like the harvest home. It's like, in a way, it's two different things.
Totally. We haven't done a full training together yet as a couple. And that's come up, like it's been a reticence of like,
yeah,
like, yeah, one level, like, oh my god, what will it do to the couple, those fears, but the other level for me is like a selfishness. It's like, if I'm there, I'm going to be thinking about the couple and our process and that, where it's like, I want to go and have my experience.
yeah, but it's beautiful to discuss that. Are we there to kind of heal and work on the union, or are we there as individuals, like full-blown experience? Natalie, you want to connect with this?
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? Because I also think that it comes into the couples, like both the couples' willingness to lean into the discomfort and knowing what times for what. So if I think then back about the chapter around like these masks, it's like, well, if one person is showing up without any masks and being like, look, I'm here, like I'm here for anything, whatever goes on, I'm here, I'm not going, like what are you then met with if the other person's like, well, actually, I don't know if I'm ready to take that mask off yet, I don't know if I can. And that sort of like tension point, or that that meeting of one who may be ready to remove a mask and the other one might not, and what that then creates in the relationship, and how actually though that can transform in a daily thing as well. Like one moment one person can be like this and the other's like that, and it's like, how do you navigate what it means for you to be raw and naked and vulnerable, whilst having acceptance for the other wherever they're at. And you might want them to be more raw, more vulnerable, more naked, but actually they might not be ready yet. And it's like, how do you then just stay in your integrity, and how do I stay in my integrity with where I'm at versus also where my partner's at, and how that then also creates magic.
Yeah,
yeah.
Good, great point. And I think that's like a beautiful like access point, that we are kind of inspiring for each other. You know, I can only do my journey. You know, there's no other journey I can do. So my honesty and authentic truth is to myself, independent of anyone around me, what they choose to do. So it's more like, yeah, like coming back constantly to what's my core, and beautifully, you know, we kind of enroll each other and involve each other and invite each other to different kind of qualities, you know, and angles. That's kind of the triggering also, you know, the hard stuff with being together, which is the developmental stuff, you know.
Yeah,
Definitely.
but I was actually thinking, Lauren, that reminds me of that conversation we had. I think we'd had a big kind of couple of weeks, and we'd ended up sitting on the kitchen floor, kind of like in this embrace together, just like locked in, you know, having those like deep relationship conversations, where I had this opportunity to say something that I was afraid was going to hurt Lauren, and rather than putting the mask up in that moment or withholding it, I decided to share it. And in that moment, Lauren just looked back at me and she was like, thank you. It was just like this moment of like, wow, thank you for your honesty. Thank you for being so true. And what came from that was just so much more connection, actually. It was almost like that truth didn't create the separation that I was afraid of. It actually created more connection.
Yeah, also because the beauty that you're describing for us is like preparing for it. Can I tell you something, you know, that might hurt you, or that I am afraid that might hurt you? You're like showing, I would like to be vulnerable now. You're like preparing the space for, you know, can I be without mask with you right now? And that's so beautiful, because then the other person can kind of say yes and no, and make themselves like, can I receive now, and like untrigger me as most as I can, you know, while you know, and the intimacy that you harvest from allowing oneself to be vulnerable, to be accepted vulnerable, and to meet there. I mean, how that's like what it's all about in a way.
Definitely. I think, yeah, I'm like, when you're like reminding me of that that time, I'm like, oh yeah, that was a painful but very yeah, I feel like a really pinnacle point actually in our relationship, that level of like a kind of core truth or core belief that moment of intimacy held for both of us, that now enabled us to like suddenly recognize that we could be someone different in intimacy, that we could that we could relate on a different level. I feel for me like that's been so built up over time, like over now, 18 months, 2 years of like developing this language and this trust. And like, talking about this dance of being able to like move together as a couple, like, how one of you wants to show up, how you're both able to lean in together, how someone's not ready yet, how another person's frustrated. Like for me, it's like it works on like this macro moment to moment level, and then there's also like this zoomed out perspective, because certainly in like previous relationships or relationships that you see with like with couples or friends, sometimes it's like actually the two dancers are like vastly different qualified, right? Like some people want to take care of a partner, or are like happy to be with somebody that's really not meeting their needs because of various reasons. And actually, whilst you're going to be in this dance together, actually we all have like a different bandwidth for how much challenge is healthy for us. It's like you want to get a dancer maybe who's like of a similar competence level to you, but they know completely different steps, and they know like completely different choreography and dance moves. So it's like you're able to grow, but actually no one's sort of constantly playing teacher or parent or child or anything like that. And that's where I find like our magic has really come out, because it's amazing to be in this partnership with somebody where I feel so met, actually, where like I can't go to my like normal crappy patterning as much as I'd like to, or much as I that I'd used to be able to hide behind, because there's somebody who's like, fuck no, I see that shit, stop. Damn, that used to work.
Oh no, I don't have any weapons
yeah
my weapons, you've got my weapons.
I like the point. I wanted to grasp the point you said, when you sat down it hurted. So in a way, for me, like allowing myself to stay in a relationship, it's like inviting and allowing for the hurt. Instead of, no, that hurts, I'm going away. I don't want to be hurt, I'm going to go away. But to like accept that pieces are not all, they hurt sometimes, and to have that be, the evolution together, have that be, to kind of be able to rest in the hard moments, and to accept them, and to embrace them.
Definitely, because that's a huge part of what love is. Like I remember really learning very suddenly, like quite, it was very strong, of someone saying like, love isn't what you think it is. It's not this lovely dopamine honeymoon period or whatever. Like, love is this truth. Truth to like to show up for that authenticity, that intimacy, really. And sometimes the biggest love you can give someone is like the exact thing that they just have been avoiding wanting to hear all that time. But like that is what love looks like in that moment. It's saying that piece that like they can go on avoiding it forever. I could go on avoiding that moment forever. If Natalie hadn't like shown up and said that to me, we would have spiraled and continued playing out all this shit. But in that moment, she did the most loving thing that she could do, which was like potentially risk losing me, but actually share with me like something from her heart that was like, that was the truth. And I felt it immediately. The cries came, the tears came, they're like, oh god, this hurts. But like you know it when someone chimes deep and you're like, right, there's truth in that, truth that I haven't wanted to look at.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I think, and on that, like, I think that is the beautiful thing about coming into partnership and with the concept of daily sex, is that there's the things that play out in the relationship and the ways that you interact with each other, but then there's also the things that play out in the outside world. And being able to be raw and remove those masks and met still with love, even if love hurts, in the relationship and in your bubble, it means that when things are going on the outside world that hurt or are challenging or testing or even exciting, you can be met at that same place. Because you're building that. It's like a muscle. You're like flexing the muscle. It's like, okay, you and I, we've got this now. Like, we know this, like we've got this between us. So actually then when the things that go on outside, we can come back to that, like knowing that, okay, we're here, we can be raw, we can be vulnerable, we can be whatever we need to be.
Yeah.
And that is just like huge.
Yeah, that is huge. And what to be able for us, for example, to be able to meet, you know, in sexual meeting, it needs to be, you know, calm between us and love between us. So when we're irritated or angry or, you know, everything else that's going on in life, we have like become masters in completing things.
Wow.
Very dynamic people, you know, it's not like a calm house in any way. It's like a very dynamic, alive, you know, full house. But the commitment from both individuals to complete, you know, to be able to meet, because it's both, we're two people who wants that. Yeah. So
Have
that
you
brought it.
have you consciously brought your lovemaking in at times when you've been in your triggers, like when you've been out of alignment at all?
No, that does not work at all. Not laying down in the same bed, even being, you know, not in love. That I'm not going to do that. That's not worthy at all. You know, we need to complete before. I'm not going to. That's kind of sacred spot place there. It's going to be clean, kind of.
Definitely. I was just thinking that there's this sort of like cultural thing around like everyone loves angry sex or whatever, like sort of like visions that you have of that. So I'm curious, like with the level of consciousness that you have, if you've been able to.
No,
amazing. So your peacekeeping is like incredible.
Yeah, it's more the commit, like the result has been that we complete, so we can lay down, you know, and or, you know, go into whatever we do, but it's like to allow the bodies to dance again and forget the heads. You know, it's more allowing that space to like appear, you know.
In relationship to what Natalie was saying just before around like, you know, you kind of practice this deep connection, love, and working through triggers and all these elements like through the container of a relationship, and then it becomes this this blueprint for how to engage with the world. Like, what has daily sex taught you about love in the world, like, and how it shows up in politically and socially in these huge sort of ways?
Oh, I love that question. I love that question. No one have asked me that question yet, so that's a beautiful question.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, for example, my whole bodily experience of just walking around in bliss. You know, I'm like turned on the whole time. I'm like in orgasmic wave over the day, just a breath away, if it would be away somewhere. Yeah, so I had no idea that my body could work that way. Yeah, and what I see is that if we have this, if we can like contain bliss and like love pulsating in this way, of course less of harm and less of other power games and stuff that is destructive. So of course this is like what soul wants. You know, this is like the soul wants to, you know, merge together and dance this body bliss game. So it's like it's not personal in any way. The book is not personal either. It happens to be me who is writing, but it's more like if it awakens just a thought of like changing some pattern or something, then it's fantastic, because it's all about, I'm just like supporting evolution. Here to the whole longing to share comes from, can I show what works in some way? It comes from like supporting the development that's happening with people, you know.
How did it interact with parenting? The state of love.
How does the state of love interact with parenting?
Yeah, this.
Mm.
Yeah, how did it create different dynamics with your children? And
Well, the funny thing is that, of course, in a way, as a parent, I think it's really, in a way, sad that the most beautiful, times we have together as parents, they never see.
right.
They never get to be in contact, or it's, they're not aware of it. So for me, that's kind of awkward in a way of, I don't know what the answer is to that, but it's kind of funny, that it's that way. But having parents who walk around, fulfilled, I guess that is what they don't know anything else. They just have us. For example, before we started this rhythm, I was always had a huge complaint. I don't get enough hugs. No one is, you don't do that. You don't do, all this. And well, when we meet this much, it's gone, that complaint. I'm like, my body's like, fine, no, I'm good. So having parents which are there, I don't know what it does to them, but in some way that would be my answer.
I love that. I think that's super resonant, that like being able to put aside time, like in this kind of container, in this way of like, this is the time that we're spending together, and to do that really fully takes away like the sting of any like neediness or abandonment or distance that like might need to be part of of day-to-day life of work and children and travel and whatever else.
Yeah. Natalie, you want to connect?
Yeah, I was actually just thinking about the thing you were saying about how your children don't get to see some of your most beautiful and intimate moments with your partner. And it just tapped something into me of like, yeah, actually that's true. It's like probably some of the most love and intimacy that you share with your partner. Yeah, the children don't see it at all, but what they will feel is the energetics of that afterwards, that vibrate out. And that level of connection and intimacy can only create support for the household and support for the family. And almost then my second thought is that actually it's quite also, then it's beautiful that they don't get to see it, because actually they were conceived in that, or a version of that. It was probably later, but so there's an energetic resonance of that within their bodies, and from a really, really, really early phase, and how that just creates fulfillment and fullness of this life force eros energy in daily life, as an imprint, without them even knowing. Like it's completely subconscious, completely subtle, but how that would only, I can imagine, create fulfillment for them in their lives.
Beautiful. It will be interesting in a few years to hear their reflection on everything. But one I'm connecting to, what if we expand this thought to having people, well, it's also funny, if we look around, we don't all just people around us, the most beautiful intimate situations and experiences they have, we don't get to witness, or so we're like the most beauty of what experiencing in the in a body, we don't have that, we don't talk about it, we don't see it, we don't, it's like that we absolutely don't talk about, it's like the opposite to, in some way, and having fulfilled individuals walk around you, how what kind of society will that bring,
Completely. So just I have a question around kind of changing the topic a little bit. So I'm curious as well. So you mentioned that you don't journey into sexuality if you're feeling angry, or if you're feeling like having those tensions. The bedroom is a sacred place, and that's when you enter, when it's complete. So something that I'm curious about, which is like the inverse of taking off masks and makeup to create really like your rawness, your vulnerability, your intimacy of your nakedness. Where then does that play in the consciousness around inviting in different characters or different aspects of yourself that might be a version of a mask that actually is a version of you, to then meet another. So it's something that, so Lauren, as she mentioned before, has been an actress and done all these different amazing things, and she's really brought me into that vibration of understanding different characters and different parts of me that wants to be expressed sexually and in this way too. And yeah, I'd love to hear from Lauren also how you feel about conscious masks and makeup in sexuality, and also then from you.
Yeah, well, maybe Lauren starts, because in a way we are so very simple, you know, so we're like not at all experienced in that form of like taking on roles and expressing it and playing with it. And so Lauren, you can share what you see in this question if you like. It's fantastic.
Yeah, for sure. I think you know, one of the big journeys that I've been lucky to go on, like partly as an artist, but then also through like any therapeutic healing shamanic work, is like around tapping into like archetypes that exist within me that maybe I felt like shame around or haven't fully expressed, from like, you know, the most feminine to the most masculine to the most powerful to the most surrendered to the most ugly to the most like fabulously adorned and adored. Like, yeah, there are different times when I've had these pop out, and I guess I've been supported through my work and trainings to like explore them. And I think one of the most potent containers to explore any aspect of ourselves, whether that's our like deep vulnerability or our wildness, is in the intimate relationship of of a lovemaking relationship, where you're kind of, you know, you're naturally kind of already drawing on those archetypical energies anyway. Like, you're each other's parent and each other's child. You're each other's your mother, father, father, mother, father, father, whatever. Like, and I think in some ways, actually, we've talked about this before, but like being in a same-sex relationship, you probably become a lot more hyper aware to like the expectations of certain archetypes, like the conventions, because certain things just aren't what's being played out naturally. So you have a chance to like kind of immedially program and examine, like, you know, on a very simple level, like, you know, what's the desire for someone to be more kind of in their masculine right now? Like, what's it like if we're both, you know, wearing backward caps and in our right now? But like, actually, like, what is the energy that like I really need? And yeah, I think it's been like hugely fun, celebratory, like healing, mad, like way of actually being able to like to accept and expand and enjoy like huge parts of ourselves. And this can go from being like very, very healing actually, to being very just silly and creative, and like, you know, we're all for temple spaces and the sacredness of sexuality in a really big way. And part of that is like, how do we play? Like, what's the playfulness that wants to arise? So
beautiful. And when I hear many beautiful points, we could talk forever about this, I think, but something that I connect to is that, of course, when I hear you speak, I also recognize the journey that we have gone on. So all the activity has, of course, kind of expanded us in allowing these different archetypes. In our relationship, we don't talk about it so much, but I see and feel how I, for example, can go into power and darkness in the sexual,
right,
for example, you know, and that's really sexy and cool. And, you know, I can surrender in a whole other way. And so we have definitely like expanded. We're not so much in the theatre, you know, like taking on the theatrical with
right.
you know, stuff and like that. And that's just something we have left to do. But you know, So definitely.
Definitely. And I think what you've talked about, like that also comes with being so intimate with somebody, is like being able to do those things subtly, maybe without naming them, is like part of having such a beautiful intimate relationship as well.
It's actually also, after having learned about masculinity and femininity, and that both have them, and we can actually kind of shift in the lovemaking, you know,
Right.
who is who and who's got what bodily, you know, parts, and it becomes like a flowing kind of very something.
Yeah, hermaphroditic orgy between two people.
Right, and I think that's the beautiful thing though, is that actually learning how those archetypes and these characters that we can play out, if they are truly what wants to be expressed in that moment, then it's not a mask, it's not makeup, it's actually just the true expression. And whether you're calling it an archetype or just an energy or just a feeling at that time, like I really want to just give to you, and Lauren really wants to receive it, it's like, okay, whatever the name is just sort of for the mind to give us a play around it as well. But really, if that is truly what wants to be expressed, then it isn't a mask and it isn't a makeup, and that can be in all of its playfulness or its passion or its darkness or its sweetness as well.
Like from within rather than, you know, on the outside.
Yeah.
You know, it's like a longing and a desire that, you know, something the heart kind of wants to express.
And actually, like, I think that's something really interesting for the people either listening to this or reading the book. It's like asking ourselves and reflecting on ourselves, like, what is the role, what is the mask that I usually wear? Like, am I the man, and am I usually playing the man and always the giver, and like I always want my woman to receive, and noticing, oh, actually maybe that is what I do, that could be a mask. And what is that mask hiding you from? Is it hiding from your intimacy, your vulnerability, your receiving? And what happens if you switch those roles, and how that happens, and you take on a different cap or a different place.
Woo, how exciting things here.
And even more fun when you've got like 3 masculines that you're working with. Like, oh, here's my 8-year-old boy. I mean, probably don't go into that one, maybe. or like, here's my, like, you know, my like 30-year-old young man go-getter, or here's my, like, you know, really grounded 56-year-old, like, here I am. And like, actually, like, who do I want to call on? What aspect of the masculinity? Like, it broadens so much. There's masculinity kind of in the tantric Taoist sense of it representing this presence and this penetration and you know, this structure. And then there's this understanding of how, like, masculinity is played out socially. Like, how has this essence affected our concept of gender and character, actually? And then it becomes really, you know, really fun. And we've, you know, we've had great pleasure from like naming these characters as well, and being able to sort of call them in immediately. Like, I want, you know, I want to meet blah blah right now. Like, I'm in the mood for. But yeah, I think it probably comes more naturally as well. I think definitely for me, coming from a place of growing up acting, but I also think for those that have been like socialized as women, that like have played that role of like dressing as the feminine, which I think is partly what your chapter talks about, is this like beauty that comes from like the feminine expectation of makeup and yeah, all of that. And I think, I mean, like, as an actor, there was always like a thing of like the moment that you got your costume, and that would transform something about the way that you walked, or where you held your energy, or actually where emotion sat in your body, because this character wears a really heavy coat and suddenly everything's a bit downtrodden, or this character always wears heels, and, you know, and it's like these things make such subtle differences, and we've had a real opportunity to explore that as women as well. Like, you know, we get the spread of it, and I think, yeah, partly being able to play with makeup and clothes, and these are costumes already. They are. It's just like, how consciously are we wearing these costumes? And Natalie, like, she's absolutely like incredibly beautiful, but like she looks so different when she's wearing makeup to when she's not wearing makeup. Like, maybe it stems from that, but like, you know, we'd be together and I'd, you know, go to the kitchen, come back, she's taking her makeup off, and suddenly it's like I have to remember that I'm with this same / different person, because it's so startling in some ways, that the differences between those sort of different energies actually that the makeup gives. So
well, that's really interesting also, that that makeup or clothes or you know, pieces of some kind that we put on the outside kind of brings a certain energy, brings a certain role, have us feel and be felt differently. It's like amazing possibilities there, you know, in a way.
Definitely. Well, we actually even had I called Lauren before we came on, and I was like, hey, so obviously we're talking about makeup and masks. I was like, are you wearing makeup? They're like, well, I was wearing makeup this morning. Like, yes, I'm not going to take it off for the call. I was like, oh, okay, cool. I was like, well, I'm not wearing makeup. Should I put it on? And she was like, well, what do you want to do? I was like, actually, okay, I feel like not wearing it. And she's like, great, okay, cool. So it's like, and it's interesting how we do that, and like, oh, the thoughts that run through my head, oh, are people going to see the video? Are they going to think I like look away, or like what that kind of internal story just creates? And it's like, no, that's not my story anymore. Like, I'm just going to be where I'm at, and right now this is where I'm at, and that's beautiful. And always. And the other thing of that is like growing up and seeing the older generation. So I think our younger generation are making more choices on when and where and how they wear makeup. But also my mum's generation, like, she wouldn't go out of the house without makeup on. Like, that was just part of, like, she worked in the hospitality industry, so she'd always have heels, she'd always have makeup on, and that was just her. And it's interesting seeing, as I've become more raw and open, how also she's becoming more like that as well, as a byproduct. So I think it's interesting for you and your children, and also the impact that it makes of society as a whole, and especially this role that we play as women, and these very Western ideals of what beauty are having to be a certain way, and actually what type of insecurities that creates. And takes us away from our self-love. And really, our self-love is what we need to be able to actually meet another in love as well.
Beautiful. So the whole aim with the book is kind of to release that, that the rawness is the beauty, like the most beautiful feeling is in the rawness, and then we can play with all kind of masks and stuff, endlessly.
Right.
And they have their point in different arenas and so on. But yeah, and it comes from like a value inside of me, of the longing of having these meetings with people as raw as they can be. And we are going to start now to round up our sharing. We could share for a longer time, but any last words or any last reflections now before we complete?
Yeah, I just like what feels like a kind of conclusion, essence also of what it feels like your book is wanting to unlock, is that the reason why sexuality is so potent is because it's this total, when you're really in it, it's this total losing of control, surrendering to what the moment is. That is its rawness, right? It's like what's really, really, really real between us right now, not what was good last night, but like and wow, to do that daily, like my New Year's resolution.
Yeah. That's what it's all about, losing your head, kind of.
Yeah, and actually it is a meditation. It's a meditation for life, of like, how can, building on what Loz said, how can we meet each moment as if it's for the first time? And so much of daily life comes into routines and habits and children and this and that, and fortunately or unfortunately we don't have children yet, so we get to avoid that one for now, but there are daily routines and habits that we fall into. So actually this is meditation, which is like, how can we be in the moment with such newness and with truth, that actually you can bring that out into your life, so that each day and each experience can become a new experience where anything is possible and you don't know what's going to happen, and that actually is what creates the most fulfillment. So yeah.
And
it's brilliant
to have this losing ourselves together on the agenda, kind of in this daily, everything, to have it be part of the, like, the rhythm. It's just, it's like a question: how much bliss can I have during 24 hours? Is it on the agenda, kind of like that? Yeah,
is it a priority?
And with that, like, one last super quick thing was that this, like, losing ourselves together, like, in sort of pre-civilizations, like this concept of ecstasy, of ecstasis, of like getting out of one's head, was this pathway to fulfillment, to a channel to the divine, to breaking the habits of the prefrontal cortex. Like, it was through this ecstasy. You can do that through dancing or drumming or trance, but one of the most amazing ways to get into that altered state of consciousness, of course, is through lovemaking. And so it's this incredible prayer and this incredible opportunity to like fulfill this deep human need that we're like deeply repressing in our societies.
Woo, those are beautiful last words.
Yeah.
And I can show you the book now because it came just the other day. So yeah, so it's a small sweet thing, but 33 chapters it's in here.
Amazing.
Beautiful. It looks incredible, Matilda. Congrats.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, thank
It's
you.
amazing to have you, and we could surely speak a lot more about all these different pieces. It's so interesting and so becomes so rich when we're together also. It's fantastic.
Definitely. You'll have to write a sequel.
Well, maybe that's what happens.
Yeah.
Share my tears.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Much love.